Hello and welcome back, Shrike here with another D&D video. Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2 were both iconic games when it came to the RPG scene, and it's safe to say that both of them are probably up there as some of the best RPG games of all time. But will Baldur's Gate 3 be as good? The Baldur's Gate games are a beloved series, with a lot of people still putting them up there as one of their favourite games. In this video we're going to comb through all the information that we have so far for Baldur's Gate 3, and we're going to discuss two things. Firstly, will it be a good video game? And secondly, will it be a good Dungeons & Dragons video game? But before we get onto that, I upload D&D videos here on YouTube every Monday and Thursday. So subscribe if you want to improve your game, or if you want to take part in discussions like these, and make sure to hit the notification bell so you get notified when I upload a new video. So let's kick this video off by talking about the developers behind Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios. And you can't really talk about them without talking about Divinity Original Sin 2. So Larian Studios will be the masterminds behind the Baldur's Gate 3 development, and in case you don't know who they are a Belgian game studio who were founded in 1996. Their most notable games were Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, which we'll talk about a bit later, but first let's focus on the developers. One thing that makes them a bit different than other game studios is during the development of Divinity Original Sin 2, they would do update videos. In these videos, Sven Vinnick, the founder of Larian Studios, would take you through their offices and talk about how the development is coming along. And it was really refreshing to see a game company just pull away the curtains and actually let you see what is going on behind the scenes. And as a fan, it really made you feel like you were involved in the development and you were sort of a part of the game being built. Since the development of Baldur's Gate 3 has started, these videos have ceased, and I assume that's because they have to get permissions from the people over at Dungeons & Dragons, but there's still quite a lot of gameplay and information that is being shared about that we'll get to later in the video. So generally it looks like Larian Studios are a good game company who actually care about their community, which when you're talking about if Baldur's Gate is going to be a good game, then hopefully that is a big tick. But let's actually look at their previous work. Both Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2 were both kickstarted, and it's pretty safe to say that they were a big success. In case you don't know, this means that the creation of the game was partially funded by the community, rather than going to a big investor or something like that. I bring this up because that's another pretty big tick for Larian Studios. The community trusted them enough to make a game that they were looking forward to and that they wanted to see, and trusted them enough to actually hand over money. And when you look at copies sold, both of these games were pretty big successes, with the first game selling 170,000 in its first week, and then the second game selling 700,000 in its first month. But we don't want to just look at the copies sold. Let's actually dive a bit deeper into Divinity Original Sin 2, which is the most recent game they've made, and see if there's any elements of Dungeons & Dragons in it. And if there are, hopefully that means that they can be trusted to make a good Baldur's Gate 3 game. I'm going to miss out talking about the mechanics of Divinity Original Sin 2 because a lot has already been released about Baldur's Gate 3, and quite a lot of gameplay has been seen as well, so we will just dissect that a bit later on. So let's talk about the story and how Dungeons & Dragons-y it is. Dungeons & Dragons-y, is that a word? Yeah, we'll go with it. So let's start right at the beginning with character creation. In Divinity Original Sin 2 you had two choices. You could either play a pre-made character or you could make your own. The biggest difference here is that if you pick a pre-made character, their story will already be intertwined into the game, meaning that they will have new and different interactions with the world. A huge part of Dungeons & Dragons is the character creation, with a lot of players out there just creating character after character, even though they might never actually play them in a game. So the fact that in Divinity Original Sin 2 you were actually penalised for creating your own character and not going for the pre-made one is a little bit worrying. You don't really want to have to play a pre-made character just so that you can see different parts of the game that you wouldn't be able to see if you created your own character, especially not in a Dungeons & Dragons game. Larian Studios have said that this will be different in Baldur's Gate 3, so let's hope that they can intertwine your backstory into the game even for your created characters. When we start talking about the story of Divinity Original Sin 2, this is where people get quite divided. Some people say that it's a very rich and deep story, whereas others say that it's a bit all over the place and that it's quite hard to follow. I think whatever side of the fence you sit on here, you can be assured that the people over at Dungeons & Dragons are going to have a huge impact on the story of the game here, and we know that they are very good at storytelling. Another massive part of Dungeons & Dragons is how open world it is and how your interactions with the world will change the outcome. This is obviously a very big challenge for video games because you have to program in every single possibility and every single outcome. I will say with Divinity Original Sin 2, they definitely managed to make it feel like a big open world and make it so that you can interact with the world in different ways. You could sneak and pickpocket pretty much anyone, you could set up battlefields beforehand, trade with anyone, fight anyone, and loads more. The real question is how your interactions with the world actually changed the story. Some decisions you made with side quests definitely changed that contained story, but there wasn't really much you could do to change the main quest line. Maybe I am being a bit mean by bringing this up because it's pretty damn hard to make a video game with even a fraction of the open worldness of Dungeons & Dragons, but I thought because it's such a big part of Dungeons & Dragons, it was definitely worth bringing up. Now, we've spoken about Larian Studios and we've spoken about Divinity Original Sin 2, which is their latest game. Now let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3 and what we know so far. Earlier in the video we said that we would talk about the mechanics of the game, so let's do that first. We know they will be using a modified version of the 5th edition rules of Dungeons & Dragons, which is in line with the limitations of video games. I think this is great really, because that means that if you have played 5th edition's Dungeons & Dragons, hopefully you'll just be able to jump into the game and completely understand how it works. One thing which is going to be quite different is the initiative system, which is when you act in combat, because they're going to be basing this off the team rather than the individual creatures. When I first heard this, I was a bit skeptical because I can't really see that there's a way that the first team doesn't have a huge advantage in combat, but I guess when we see a bit more gameplay, we should work out if that's going to be the case or not. They have said the reason they're doing this is so that if you're playing in a group of friends, you all act at the same time to A, save time, and B, so that you can get a bit more tactical while in combat. I completely understand that and agree that doing the initiative system like this will solve that problem, but I can just see that whoever gets to go first in combat will just stunlock the other team and then they won't really be able to do anything on their turn. Another big difference compared to Divinity Original Sin 2, which will put it more in line with Dungeons & Dragons, is the verticality of the maps. All characters will have the ability to jump now, which means that they can get to higher points in the map. And looking at the gameplay that's been released so far, it looks like the maps have a lot more verticality in them. This, added with the fact that you can now shove, will add another layer to combat, hopefully making it even better than Divinity Original Sin 2's combat. I should say that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be turn-based, which is a bit different to the previous Baldur's Gate games, but it is more in line with Dungeons & Dragons. Something that I think is pretty cool is that you can go into turn-based mode even when you're outside of combat, so you can get a bit more surgical with your movement and your actions. I think this is a really good idea and it's going to make some really interesting interactions outside of combat as well as in combat. Going back to character creation, they have said that on launch all of the races and the classes in the Player's Handbook of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons will be available to play. Which is quite a lot really. That means there's going to be 9 races and 12 classes, and each of those classes can be modified even further. The class options in Divinity Original Sin 2 were pretty good, so I'm confident they'll be able to do that again in Baldur's Gate 3. The real test is going to be how balanced they are. Now let's talk about the cutscenes for a second, because my word was the opening cutscene sexy. If they keep that quality throughout and have a really good story, this should be a really good piece of storytelling in video games. So what do you think? Will Baldur's Gate 3 be a good video game, and will it be a good Dungeons & Dragons video game? Let me know down in the comments below. If you want to know my opinion, yes, I do think it is going to be a good game, and yes, I do think it's going to be a good Dungeons & Dragons game. I was a big fan of what Larian Studios did with Divinity Original Sin 2, and I think them teaming up with the people over at Dungeons & Dragons is going to be a great match and hopefully end up with an amazing video game. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more Dungeons & Dragons content. I upload here every Monday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe. But until next time, happy gaming!